Hello, everyone. It's another federal tax update podcast. Annie and I are happy to join you today. We're recording this 2 days before Thanksgiving, so if I forget, happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving because you probably couldn't hear it before Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Roger. I'm excited to be here. I am ready for a little Thanksgiving break. Got my stretchy pants ready, and I'm looking forward to some good cooking that I'm not doing. So that's
Yeah,
kind of my Thanksgiving plans over here, over here in Texas. So,
favorite
but
holiday. Plenty of
exactly.
food and plenty of football. So just max out on both and then deal with it come Monday. But
That's true. So, thankfully, luckily, I guess I should say, we have two guests with us today.
yeah,
Both have been on with us, but just not on together with us. So, it is our pleasure to welcome Terry Lemons and Danny Werfel here on our podcast for the pre-Thanksgiving kind of touch base, see how things are going in the world of taxes and government shutdown and IRS news and all the above. So, welcome the two of you. It's my pleasure to have you here with us today.
It's great to be on. Happy Thanksgiving 2 days early.
that's right. And it's great, it seems like I always saw these guys together, when they were both in the service, so it felt like we'd had them on individually, that it made perfect sense to get them back on, kinda like get the band back together. I know you guys have done some speaking since you've both left the service, but we thought it would be a good idea for us to reconnect you guys. So again, thank you for doing this again, and happy Thanksgiving to you guys. And so what have you been doing since, you left the service? Danny, let's start with you. I know you've been busy because I've read about you and heard about a lot of the speaking engagement. I think you were just at AICPA. I saw something just the other day. So what's been keeping you busy?
Yeah, I have a really interesting portfolio of roles and assignments that I've taken on. I think the headline is that coming out of the IRS in January and then immediately finding myself um, in demand to answer questions
Right.
about the activities of the Trump administration, the activities of the Doge, in speaking to all sorts of people from all walks of life, trying to answer questions about the IRS, whether it was tax exempt or data sharing or the IRS cuts, about what it means to declare that something is fraud or error. When, for example, the president announced that he had the authority to eliminate USAID without an act of Congress if it's fraud, um, and a lot of grantees wondering what their rights were given
Right.
disruption in their grant payments. Um, I just started talking to people and sharing what I know, both from my time at the IRS, but also my extensive part of my career from the Office of Management and Budget, and my broader just kind of lifelong journey of studying as encyclopedic as I can of the government and how it operates. In talking to people, I realized that America would benefit from a civics lesson, and that's why I'm at both Johns Hopkins University at their new School of Government and Policy that they're just standing up, and I'm there advising the dean and the faculty and hoping that um, my contributions in the space of civics work its way into the curriculum and the activities. And then I'm also doing a fellowship at Duke University, which is centered specifically on civics. And there we are looking to innovate ways in which to create a better conversation about government, especially amongst the youth. You
Mhm.
have, middle school students in social studies classes that are learning about government, typically in a monotonous textbook about the three branches, all really important.
Right.
And we are trying to get creative to figure out today's youth. How would you communicate with them to get them a little bit more excited, interested, and engaged on what the government is and what it does in this country? So that's my civics portfolio. Then I have a couple of private sector things. I'm on the board of the Alliant Group, which is a company based out of Houston, and then I am also on the board of an AI startup called Clipbook, which does digital media, all kinds of stuff that I've never done before, and
Right.
just really enjoying the journey that I'm on.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I had a chance. Danny and I had a chance to catch up. His daughter goes to the University of Georgia. He was in town for a football game, and your passion for the civics was clear. And it sounds like you're following that road, and that's great because we talked about a lot of people. You know if the post office doesn't work, but there's so much of government that is behind the scenes that you don't know, but you will know if it doesn't work. And so,
Yeah,
uh,
when you're having an ordinary day, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes in the government that you have no visibility into.
right,
Keep that day ordinary. It's only when the day becomes extraordinary, and then you actually look for government, and you
right,
want
yeah,
to respond, whether it's someone gets sick in your house, or there's a fire, or there's some type of terrorist attack, or something terrible happens. That is when the moment comes that everyone turns to government.
right.
So government is relevant both when your day is ordinary and typically, if it's extraordinary, that's a problem. And it's making sure people understand that when we take steps to downsize government, to cut its budget, to to essentially push people out of government and make it a less attractive career option for talented people in school right now or in the private sector. There's a cost to that, and
Mhm.
my goal is just make sure that we're smart buyers, smart shoppers with respect to our big or small government, or our government with extensive cuts or not. And that's really my mission statement right now.
Yeah. Well, and it's something we all need to because they do. Our younger generation probably doesn't spend as much time. Maybe they aren't exposed as much to learning as us old guys were when we went through school. And I don't mean old guys to lead into Terry, but Terry Stevens,
I knew that was coming.
Chief of Communication Labs at the IRS. Terry, I know you've been doing some interesting stuff. Tell us what you've been doing.
Yeah, well, let me just say it's hard to keep up with Danny. He's got quite a portfolio, but I've been keeping really busy. I would say there's really two tracks that I've been doing. One, I've continued to be involved with tax issues, talking at a lot of tax conferences across the country, giving a behind the scenes look at what's going on inside IRS and government right now. And the other thing that I've been doing is going back to my roots as a writer. I was a newspaper reporter before I joined the IRS back in the late 90s. And I've been able to do some writing. I had an article that ran in Forbes about the government shutdown. And the other big project that I've had, Roger, I know you know this, but I'm a big baseball fan. I grew up
Right.
in St. Louis. So I had a really fun deep dive. I wrote a book back during the summer and early fall on one of the old St. Louis Cardinal teams. So that was a tremendous amount of fun and a chance to stretch my writing legs and do something different. So watch for that coming out next summer.
That's
We
exciting.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. So what else have you guys sort of have on your short horizon here? What are you thinking? I know you're going to get through the holidays, but what do you see in your short-term future as your goals going forward?
Well, I'd like to continue to speak publicly, to publish. I didn't mention I have a monthly column in Bloomberg, and where I'm trying to plain language things that I see happening in the government space, in the IRS space, but trying to broaden out, and provide a perspective that hopefully elevates the way in which we talk about and engage on important topics. Not My goal is not to kind of come across partisan, kind of attacking
Right.
the current administration on what they're doing, but again, it's raising the awareness of what are some of the implications of the executive branch taking action or not taking action,
Mm.
and can we do that in a way that creates good civil discourse? So trying, pushing that. I'm speaking publicly at a variety of different events. Again, trying to provide perspective behind the scenes at the IRS or behind the scenes in government, one common thread through my remarks is to try to reset the discussion around the federal workforce as as a group of people that we should be appreciative of, that we should be investing in, that their success is our success as a nation. And so I make no apologies for my lifelong support for the
For your
federal
passion of that. Yeah.
yeah, for the support of the federal workforce, having been connected to so many people in government. That they inspire me, their expertise, their hard work. And again, the idea here is to illuminate that hard work, not perfect. There's no perfect organization in the world. There's no perfect person in the world. I'm not perfect. Was not a perfect
Yep.
commissioner, and the IRS was not perfect when in the two different stints I had as IRS commissioner. But we made accomplishments. We had setbacks and triumphs. I think that during both my terms, we took more steps forward than steps back. So we
Sure.
had a net positive journey, which is what we should expect from our government institutions, because we can't expect perfection.
No.
So on the horizon for me is to continue to use my platform as the former commissioner to educate, not attack, but educate.
Good. Well, it's needed. And
I-
Terry, now that the book's behind you, because I know that was all encompassing. So
I think from my standpoint, Roger, it's a variation of what Danny just talked about. Part of what I really want to do is look behind the scenes. There's a lot of mistaken stereotypes about the IRS and government, and I don't think the work of the agency is very well understood. And as a corollary to that, I also want to help raise awareness about the important role that tax professionals out there have. And especially with the upcoming filing season, I think tax professionals are going to have to bear a lot of burden with all these new tax law changes coming in. So from my standpoint, it's really kind of a variation of what Danny's been doing, but it's so important for people to understand what goes on behind the scenes. It just doesn't happen by accident at places like the IRS or, for the tax professional community either. It's a really, I think, underappreciated role in our society, all the, the network of people that make revenue collection in this agency work.
Yeah.
Revenue collection in the country, I mean.
Right.
I've been not surprised, but the IRS is in the news a lot.
Yeah.
And whether it's the ongoing court battle on the sharing of taxpayer data with ICE for immigration enforcement, that's been in the news.
Right.
The elimination of direct file in the news, and then I think a kind of a less specific story, but a more general story about the impact of the government shutdown on all government activities. And for the IRS, it's right in the middle of their readiness program to get ready for filing season in January. Having run the IRS in 2013, when the government shut down for almost a month, I saw, as much as we tried to orchestrate a shutdown plan that limited the damage, there was disruption to our filing readiness program, and we delayed filing season by a week. So I'm also know that once filing season starts, the news will pop again about the IRS performance, and there may be opportunities for me to speak about different tips that can be provided. One thing that I'm worried about, I worry about this all the time, is tax scams. Filing season is when the bad actors, do the most preying upon victims, because people are in the mindset to file their taxes. If they see a message from the IRS on their phone, which is fake, they're more likely to react to it because everyone knows it's filing season. So to the extent that I can be a part of the community, I'm no longer at the IRS, but
Right.
I still feel like I'm a member of the tax community now. if I can speak to those type of consumer alerts, I'll plan to do that as well.
I think there's definitely concern that this tax season may or may not kick off on time, and even if it does, it's going to be a struggle just to, get the forms ready and get everything filed, and lack of employees, lack of processing. A lot of people, need those refunds, want those refunds, as soon as possible, and so it'll be interesting. I don't
Yeah,
recall the season of
I've been
2013, but
yeah, I've been clear about some of the concerns that I see, the reduced staff, the
hmm
reduced budget. You
yep,
know, one storyline here that I think is important is with the end of the government shutdown, the IRS did not get its request in the president's 2026 budget. That did have a request for more I think 800 something $million in additional funding to pay for phone assisters in the call center. And in the budget that President Trump submitted, the budget described concerns with levels of service in the phone. If they don't get that plus up, they didn't get it. And so concerns there. So when you take the staff reductions, the budget reductions, the government shutdown, the disruption that has, the lack of stable leadership until now, it looks like they finally have someone in Frank Bisogno that's going to provide stable leadership, but that's a recent thing.
Right.
hmm
There's, I would say that there's risks heading into filing season that we should be monitoring. I also, and this is, I'll keep singing this from the mountaintops. I still think it's important that we hold the IRS accountable for a plan of modernization. There's only been kind of announcements of pausing the previous modernization plan that we had up and running, which I thought was making really good progress to serve taxpayers. We've just seen a pause to that plan, a repeal a lot of the budget that was dedicated to the modernization. With the staff cuts at the IRS, we've heard about broad, high level promises of AI and robotics and a tech enabled platform that's going to make up for those staff reductions. But we haven't seen like the meat on the bones of what that means in terms of what are the next wave of technology updates that are coming, what part of the IRS process is going to be automated tomorrow that isn't automated today. None of that has been laid out. And so every chance I get, I remind people that we should be asking the IRS to produce their updated modernization plan.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Danny said there. The other, complicating factor here is the Senate Appropriations Committee just this week has released their proposed budget for the IRS, and they're talking about a 4% cut there, including a cut in the IT and operations support
Oh no.
area, which, for a lot of people, that's inside baseball. But I think this is going to add even more stress onto the agency. The House proposed an even bigger cut. So I think you can't underestimate the ability of IRS employees to deliver. I mean, they do every year, but there are unique gravitational forces that are coming into play on the agency this year. And I think there's a lot of risk facing the agency as we go into filing season 2026.
And people will see it, again, when they can't get their refund, they can't get their phone calls answered, whatever the case may be. Tax pros will see it when they're waiting for guidance on some of the new legislation, and particularly challenging is the retroactive nature of some of the
Right.
stuff in the new bill that, you're having to kind of scramble to figure out how do we make this work when we didn't know it existed for half the year? That's going to be a challenge. And
Yeah.
you both mentioned tax pros, and I think I'm going to say this from the outside looking in, it's probably not a popular thing, but the agency does have a critical role. And one of those roles that I think is important that nobody wants to talk about or fund is compliance. That, somebody has to be making sure that everyone's doing what they're supposed to do, or pretty soon nobody will be doing what they're supposed to do.
hmm
And I'm afraid that final layer of protection is going to become on the tax pros, because if the service doesn't have the funds to enforce, we're going to have to be telling everybody what the rules are and saying this is the way you've got to do it. and puts a lot of pressure on us as a community. And it's not the popular thing to do. And sadly, if they don't like what I tell them, they can go down the street and have somebody tell them something different that makes them happy. And
Yeah.
that's just going to hurt the system. It's not going to make the system work, because we see that, here in small businesses, you can be put at a competitive disadvantage in your business because your competitor isn't following rules that you're being told you have to follow. And sooner or later, your business survival is going to outweigh what your tax pro tells you.
Yeah, I mean, look, there is a ton of rhetoric today about and in the first 11 months of this administration around government waste, right? And
Right.
I've seen comments from the administration, from Doge. A lot of them I don't disagree with, right? It's like there's too much waste in our contracting process. There's spending on activities that don't end up resulting in meaningful impacts on the public. All of that's true, and it's always been true, right?
Mhm.
Right.
And we take on different methods and approaches, some more incremental, some more break glass, to try to deal with it. And we can debate um, those approaches of Doge versus previous efforts to cut spending. But if you are serious about the fiscal stewardship of the US government, of protecting taxpayer dollars, of protecting the government's bottom line, then you can't just be about spending. You also have to be about receipts. And I'm not suggesting, um, raising taxes. What
No.
I'm suggesting is, let's collect the taxes that are already owed.
Mhm.
There's a lot on the books.
Right. And so we have a roughly $700 billion a year, 700 billion with a B, in taxes that go uncollected. But if we're kind of all focused on that, that one contract at the, Department of Agriculture or Department of Commerce that should never have been put in because it was wasteful, yes, great, cut that contract. But that contract is likely, spit in the ocean compared to what we're seeing, what the potential risk is of hollowing out the IRS compliance function, as the IRS collects, more than 96% of all the revenue in the U.S. government. So this is a drum that I've beaten, that the former commissioners have beaten. It's like, if you're going to have an agenda of smart financial stewardship, cut waste, be more of an efficient government, you don't hollow out accounts receivable, the part that collects
No.
the taxes. And right now, again, where we are is we don't have all the facts, right? But what the facts we do have is that a lot of people have left, a lot of institutional knowledge has left, including subject matter expertise. We're on understanding that some of that is going to be replaced by technology, and but we don't see the plan. And one of the big moving pieces that I'm disappointed by is that I thought was very promising, was the president's nomination of Don Korb to be the chief
Right.
counsel. Don brings with him a wealth of experience in how to strategically set the IRS up for success, for compliance. Again, to collect the taxes that are owed and not a
Right.
penny more. And so the withdrawal of Don's nomination also, was a stomach punch for me and others who were excited about his nomination to come in and help strategically set up the IRS for success on the compliance function. Again, lots of IRS news since we last spoke.
Yeah. Yes. No. And it's not going to end, like you said. And again, I talk about compliance in a way, and nobody wants to be audited. Nobody wants to have all that. I get all that. And I've always used the analogy of the state patrolman pulling over the cars. It's not the one person they pull over, it's the 10 or 15 they slow down that are the real effectiveness. And so we don't have to stop audit everybody. We have to audit enough. We have to have enough programs to catch enough so that we all feel obligated to do it the right way. I mean, I'm older than everybody on this call, and I can remember when taxpayers used to be afraid to do things wrong because they were afraid they would get caught. They don't feel that way anymore.
I think this goes back to your earlier point, Roger. This is going to put a lot of pressure on people who are trying to do the right thing, whether you're a taxpayer, whether you're a small business or a tax professional. This atmosphere where compliance is being cut so much, and there's real risk there of people just taking this attitude of, well, nobody else is, following the rules. Why should I?
Right.
That's a unique challenge for the tax professionals out there who, have, ethics guidelines and things like that. The other thing that I think is really important, over, the 25 years I was in government, we always see the pendulum swing back and forth between compliance and service. And, there's a risk for taxpayers out there who, are going to cut too many corners because you don't know what in a couple of years is going to happen with the IRS. And we've seen in the past, compliance goes down and then it goes back up. So, there's risk out there for taxpayers and they may not realize it.
Yeah. They're not as afraid of it as, I don't know if that's the right word, but they don't fear it as much as maybe there's a healthy need for enough fear to make people think before they cheat, if that's the right word. I don't know what the right word is here, but
well, it's your highway patrol analogy.
Yeah. It's not the car you pull over, it's the 10 or 15 that see you pull them over, and so they slow down. That's how you make it work.
I think that was the second Carrie Underwood lyric reference we've had on the podcast. I've had stretchy pants, now before it eats. I'm revealing myself as a country music fan, in addition to all the other music that I love.
Yeah, we're gonna have something with a baseball bat in a minute here.
Yeah,
exactly.
Speaking of cheating.
Yeah. So how do we fix this? I mean, we just have to ride this out. It's funny. I used to know a lot of people at the service. I know more people outside of the service that used to work in the service than I know still there. And you to the point of all the brain drain and the experiences there. Not to say the people that are there aren't qualified and working hard, but there is some value to experience. So
there is. I mean, I think that look, I think on a balanced scorecard, it's possible, certainly possible, that through these kind of more aggressive steps, the approach taken by Doge and after Doge to really kick in some doors to get some things done, you could see a faster approach to solutions, maybe, right? For me, it comes, and I'm open to this idea that there are some big thinking technologists that the Trump administration has brought in, that are really kind of kicking the tires and evaluating the IRS tech architecture in a way that hasn't been done before. And I don't want to cancel out the potential that this fresh thinking and aggressive approach can't result in some net positive changes. But the jury's still out, right? We haven't seen the conclusions. In other words, we looked at the architecture and it is messy. Okay, understood. And the former plan was too incremental and not bold enough. Okay, I'm with you. And therefore, what we plan to do is
right.
It's okay, right. That's what we're waiting on. And I remain hopeful that there's this plan that I keep asking for. I'm going to look at it and say, this is really good. I wish we would have thought of that earlier. The question is there going to be a workforce there that sustains it? Some of these, kind of technology experts that are there, that are new, that are looking at the IRS with fresh eyes, that I've heard interviewed publicly, they talk about, I only have a few months left, and then I'm going back to the private sector. And so that worries me from the standpoint of, if you have a good plan and you're going to execute on it, it doesn't happen in weeks or months. It takes a while. So one of the open questions I have when I've seen some of these tech experts in Doge and beyond speak, and often I'm agreeing with some of their conclusions, don't agree with their methods always, but agree with their conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
There's always this theme of, and we'll be heading back to the public sector soon. I'm like, no,
No, somebody's got to stay.
somebody's gonna. If the idea is good, if you have the better diagnosis, stick around and make it work for the taxpayer.
Annie, do we dare bring up employee retention credit or
Oh.
any of the amount
We
of?
should, because we haven't had a podcast where we haven't. So we should just stick with consistency, and talk. We still get questions. People are still waiting for their money. We do still get questions about, can I, I know I can put it in this year, but what if I don't want to? And can I still go back? And statute of limitations. I mean, we do get those types of questions still today. So we can certainly touch on it. If
And the
either one of
fraud.
you have some good insight, any happy news, hopefully we'll never have to deal with this again.
I don't have any update. I just have this reflection just to share a little bit of an inside view of my reaction to Doge and this new administration. Was there was a point early on in the administration where Mr. Musk and others were commenting about the rampant fraud in the government, and concluding that it just goes out and the government doesn't do anything to stop it. And I was thinking, like, well, just a few months ago, we instituted this ERC moratorium because of fraud, and we got criticized
Right.
from both sides of the aisle for doing just what you say we never do. It is an example of me as IRS commissioner breaking glass. My leadership style was much more, and has been across my career, incremental coalition building, two steps forward in exchange for one step back progress. It's how I grew up learning how to manage bureaucracies, versus kind of the chainsaw method. But every once in a while, you need to break glass, and that's what I did with Terry and others at the IRS, making a decision to pause the program because of the concerns we had. I believe, and I think Dave Liebrick has talked about, that saved an inordinate amount of money. It was a great example of the government and industry working together. Treasury was tracking an unusual spike in outlays. Industry was, especially reputable preparers, were telling us that they were seeing dangerous signs in the water of clients leaving their trusted advice for less trusted advice, for more specious credits. It was a moment where the IRS or government needs to take bold action in order to protect taxpayer resources. But it doesn't mean that it's easy, and it has negatives too, right? People are, concerned. It creates uncertainty. When is the pipeline going to be reopened? Will it ever be reopened? So it was not without a cost of complexity and some stress on taxpayers. But there are close calls in government.
Oh, yeah.
There are areas where you make a decision in order to, what we say, protect the fisc, which is inside government talk for protect the government's bottom line, protect the taxpayer dollars. But it's never win-win-win. There's always a win-lose scenario.
Yeah, somebody that's doing things the right way loses.
Yes, exactly.
Often, yeah.
I think from my standpoint, this is one of the things that the government shutdown, I think, is really kind of helping clog the system further. You've got a couple programs. ERC is one of them. Shutdown did that program no favors.
No.
And, from my standpoint as a former tax administrator, this was a pandemic era program, and you've still got claims out there. You've got people appealing disallowances in the appeals process, and the appeals folks are backlogged. So for me, there's a certain element of, the agency really needs to get this program behind them, because they have a ton of other things they need to be focused on. And for me, during the shutdown, I mean, I just worried about, you've still got ERC there. If you're a victim of identity theft, you've got nearly a 2-year wait to get your situation resolved by the IRS. And
Yeah.
these are the kind of things, when you get build up like that, it really distracts from a lot of other priorities the IRS has. So for me, I'd really like to see the agency figure out a way to be able to move forward and, be able to focus on what's happening right now, not stuff back in the pandemic.
Mhm.
Well, and what's interesting, Terry, talk about more IRS news. I think important for preparers and members of the tax community to really um, pay attention to what TIGTA is reporting. TIGTA will likely provide a window, as they already have, into where the IRS is in terms of performance. One troubling data point, they released a report on September 30th. And in that report pointed to a part of the paper backlog dealing with complex cases going to reach 6 million by 2026. That's
Wow.
that's COVID level.
Yep.
And so what Terry and I learned, and what I certainly learned post COVID, was that with the right resources, with the right budget, you can knock out these paper backlogs relatively quickly. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And so what I hope is that that these types of helpful TIGTA reports will also generate interest in moving away from these budget cuts, right? Because if you're continuing, in order to deal with these backlogs, these are resource issues. One of the things to myth bust a bit about the IRS is it is fairly formulaic in terms of inputs and outputs. And what do I mean by that? Like if you could say, how do I get to a certain level of service in the phones? There's a formula of how many people you have trained and on the floor of the phone contact center, and you can increase it and see a formulaic increase in level of service, or you could decrease it and see a formulaic decrease. Same with submission processing. The more people you have managing the paper, both at intake and in accounts management, the lower by percentages, and you can model this out, the paper backlog will be. The more people you have, the higher it will be. And the one variable, the one wild card here that could disrupt that model is tech, right? And so
Right.
the old model of number of people as input to IRS performance or time cycles, process cycles as the output could be disrupted by tech. I'm open to that.
Mhm.
We were trying to do it, but we're not at that, you know, we haven't achieved escape velocity, at least while I was there, or I don't think they have yet, to demonstrate that putting more people on the issue is how you correct negative operational performance in the IRS today. So if you are cutting staff and then not creating budget to replace them, formulaically, we'll see what happens. You can predict reductions in the level of service on the phone, reductions in level of service in the walk-in centers, increased paper backlog. That's just formula, right?
Right.
And the management intervention we used while I was there was to add more people to the front lines to make sure that we weren't kind of leaving taxpayers out in the cold, literally on lines in shuttered walk-in centers,
Yeah.
or figuratively. Uh, and if the idea is, well, that's old school thinking, adding more people, we're going to add more tech, I'll be the first to say, great,
Right.
let's do some new school thinking. But then you got to show your homework and show your math in terms of where this is all headed.
Because you got to do something, because all of these programs, because you can throw employee retention credit, you've got conservation easements that are becoming a big problem. Again, I keep coming back to compliance. Is the bad guys just can overwhelm the system right now, and just there's no way you're going to catch anywhere near all of them, so they win. For the few that get caught. So you've either got to find more people, more technology, a combination of the two, so that the system just can't be overwhelmed by well-intended laws. I mean, ERC during a pandemic made perfect sense. I'm sure conservation easements makes perfect sense, but they're just being abused, and
Yeah,
they're
and
getting away with it.
there's two victims when the bad actors act badly. One is the government's bottom line, right? Our
Right.
tax gap grows and we're not collecting what is owed, and it has negative impacts on our debt or deficit. The other is innocent people that get exploited. In many cases, my unpacking of the ERC, I saw a lot of small businesses get duped by kind of fly by night promoters. And a better functioning IRS is one that is educating, protecting small businesses, doing outreach and programs to help delineate for these small businesses what's real and what's fake. And if fake, you're going to end up with more headaches. You have the elderly, veterans, people in underserved communities that can't afford accountants. These are the most likely people to be exploited by bad actors that, again, some of them are looking to exploit the government's bottom line and just steal taxpayer dollars directly from the government, but many are stealing money from citizens and small businesses. And so when I think about compliance, I want people to understand the victim is not just an abstract government balance sheet. The victim is also a person or a small business who, because of the complexity of our tax system, I mean, it just doesn't add up, right? You have a really complex tax system that's super stressful. And if you reduce the capacity of the IRS to help taxpayers navigate, you create an opening for scam artists and bad actors to come in and exploit individuals that might not have the tax literacy and the information they need to avoid those scams. So it's not a virtuous cycle by any stretch, and underinvesting in the IRS capacity helps facilitate more badness out there. And that's why I'm a champion for a well-resourced IRS.
Yeah. I got to tell you one story, ERC story, because it's one of the worst I've heard, and it'll make your point about the business owner being trapped. Business owner had gotten his ERC claim through a legitimate preparer, and then he got approached by a mill, and he had kept copies of the checks he got from the IRS in the original claim. He told them he had already been paid. In fact, he sent them copies of the checks he had received, and they basically got him the same amount of money a second time.
Oh, wow.
And so I got wind of it, and I said, well, you have to send it back. They're suing. And I said, don't pay their fee and send the money back. Well, he called the IRS, and they couldn't tell him how to send it back, and the people who did the second claim are suing him. So now he's being sued by the person who did the second claim. He's sitting on the money, doesn't know what to do with it, and his preparer doesn't know how to report it because it's already been dealt
Wow.
with.
What a nightmare.
And this is and we're not talking big dollars here. We're probably talking 30, 40,000 compared to millions that other got. But think about that small person sitting there and where they sit today, and they feel trapped on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And difficult to get the IRS on the phone potentially, especially if this is quote unquote a complex case, as Tigda pointed out. So look, even a well-resourced IRS, you have stories like this.
Oh,
right?
you're gonna have stories like that. I know. I just thought
This is all
to me,
about
when,
this is all about trending towards a continuous improvement journey, right?
yeah,
We want less people who are on the phone for 2 hours and they get hung up on. We want
Right.
less people that are victims of identity theft at the front end, and once they're victims, are waiting way too long to get their issue resolved. You're not going to get it down to zero or perfection.
oh no,
And you want the trends to be positive. I think that we need to be monitoring whether trends don't stay positive. I think the funds that we're able to deploy in the Inflation Reduction Act will have a lasting impact in terms of smoothing out some of the bumps that existed in IRS operations when I arrived as commissioner. But But those challenges, those cracks in the foundation can reform very quickly.
So, in our last few minutes, what are warning signs we should all look for in the filing season to tell us if things are going good or bad, other than the obvious, the refund doesn't get sent out?
I have a couple thoughts here. One, people shouldn't expect to see an early filing season start date announcement. I think we're probably going to see that in January, like we have in previous years. And even if that date gets pushed back a week or two, I don't think people should be alarmed. One of the things you don't want to do is open up the IRS systems if you know there's a problem out there.
Of course, yeah.
So I think we're really entering a critical stretch here. There's more guidance that needs to come out. We saw some last week with guidance on tips and overtime. Treasury really is putting a lot of emphasis on this. They want it to be as incredibly taxpayer friendly, actually.
Oh, it's very friendly.
Yeah, including some questioning maybe
year.
if they went too far. Yeah.
Yeah, for this year. Yeah.
But the other thing that I think is going to be really important for tax professionals to watch for are those first couple weeks of the filing season. And the systems may be running well, but if there's a problem writing the specs, the specifications for IT, you'll start seeing that stuff flare up late January, early February, and the tax pros will be the early warning device on that, because I think the tax pros will probably, see the shutter in the wings before a lot of people do, if there's a problem with some of these provisions.
Good point.
Yeah. Anything to add, Danny? Do you think there's anything we need to?
Yeah, I think sign one would be delay in filing season, but that might help mitigate some of the other risks. I'd be looking for, are there more systems going to be down, for maintenance, any, increase in the outage performance. I think we have outages every filing season, but is the trend poor? I think we need to monitor the performance on paper. I think we need to see what's going on with identity theft in terms of whether that problem is widening versus narrowing. And yeah, I think I would be surprised at this point, even with everything we've talked about, if like the core, like you file electronically, it doesn't get filtered for risk and it goes through. I would be surprised if refunds aren't issued in under 21 days, but that is something that would really depend on systems. The other thing, and this is really, really hard to measure, but one of the things that happens when you are not fully resourced is you make more mistakes. And that creates problems, right? The more mistakes you make, the more people want to show up at your walk-in centers, want to call in, want the website to do things it can't do. And so it creates a bigger demand signal for people to get help from the IRS when you, the organization, makes more mistakes. And that I worry about that. It's a really hard thing to put a metric on. But it's something that as a tax professional, you should be on the lookout to see, maybe some of your clients are going to be experiencing a little bit more quality control issues coming out of the IRS, only because of, again, the formulaic nature. It's loss of institutional knowledge. It's the tax system grows in size and complexity. And if the staff is getting smaller and the tech is not moving with pace, it's just math that the error variance will go up.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's really easy to get sideways on it. And the other thing I think that's really important, maybe if you have a return with no issues, you file electronically, it sails through the system, it's fine. But if you do have issues, if you're a tax professional, you want to make sure your clients have got the good records in there. This is not going to be the year you want to do an amended return because of the backlogs. Yeah. So, it's more important than ever to get it right, I think.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see what we can, how we rate this tax season once we get going.
And I know the
every
employees,
year's a hiccup, but
the employees are going to do everything humanly possible with what they have. But they'll make mistakes just like tax pros will, taxpayers will. We're all going to make a mistake. And I think to me, I tell everybody the key word is patience. Just have a lot of patience.
Yep.
It's great advice.
Yeah. All right. The most important question. Who you got in the championship game of college football?
Well, last time I was on, I was in a different room, and I was like, "Oh, if only I was in a different room, I could pull out my Kirby for President budget I have right here."
Yes.
Not lying. In Kirby, I trust. So I think the smart choice is Georgia.
All right. Who are they going to play?
Indiana.
Indiana.
Really?
All right.
I've got Ohio State. Ohio State versus whoever comes out of the SEC scrum. And I kind of like Georgia.
All right. Annie?
I really like Gunnar Stockton. I just think like he just reminds me of that college quarterback. I don't know if he's going to have a big NFL career at all. If he does go into the NFL, I think he's like a Taysom Hill type on New Orleans. But I just love his grit, and I just think he's the type of college quarterback that you often win with, even if it's not with flash.
And it's certainly somebody you like pulling for. I mean, he's just, he's driving his old pickup truck, and he got cows for Christmas,
A great quarterback name, right?
Gunner.
Like,
Gunner.
Like you can watch a movie about college football and be
That's
like,
right.
"Oh, of course they're calling the quarterback Gunnar Stockton." They couldn't come up with a better name than that.
That's true. No, I'm gonna have to say Georgia. I mean, I want to pull for LSU Tigers, but they're not looking too good these days. So I'm gonna stay with Georgia.
Well, I got to have Georgia in it. I got to have them there, and I think they'll probably end up paying. I'm going to say Notre Dame somehow gets a favorable draw, and we get revenge from knocking us out last year.
Wow, that is a hot.
Wow.
That would make
anyone is gonna. I think you can get good odds for that on your local sports betting website. Notre Dame versus Georgia for sure.
I'm always looking for the profitable payout too.
Just don't forget if you win more than $600, that's an income event that you have to.
Yeah, now if I lose, I can only write off 90% of it. I can't even write it all off. So, I just want revenge from last year when we had to play him, because Gunnar wasn't ready last year. He'll be ready this year.
Yeah.
To play,
he will be. Yep.
To play Notre Dame. So,
you all have a great holiday.
You too.
I'll do the same. Thank you guys. I can't tell you how much we appreciate this.
Our pleasure. Terry, always good to see you.
Thanks for having us, and great to see you guys. Happy holidays.
Thanksgiving. And you guys, we got to get together sometime. Danny, you got to come back to another football game. Terry, you've been trying to come down to a game, so maybe you can come down we'll have a little celebration for the national championship at the stadium. You can all come.
That sounds great. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be down for a graduation this spring for sure.
That's right. You got a graduation to come down for.
No, maybe a meeting at the national championship might be appropriate given the predictions here.
Yeah, where is it? Florida? Miami? Is it in Miami this year?
I don't know.
I think it's in Miami. Not a bad place to go
No, not at all.
In January to go to South Florida. Okay. All right. We'll have to keep that. I can get the tickets. In fact, I've already ordered them. We had to order we had to order championship tickets last week.
Oh, that's
so our name is in the kitty for tickets. So
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Well, thank you, Roger.
Guys.
This is great.
Annie, take us home. Thanks, guys.
All I was going to say is I hope everyone listening has a fantastic and healthy Thanksgiving holiday, and we will be back before the end of the year with another Federal Tax Updates podcast. So stay tuned. Thank you.